3 officers are still on leave.
My dad is on the floor.
Do not hit him.
And 1 man is facing several charges.
Hey, stop punching my dad!
Months after this encounter with Lakeland police on December 18th, 2022.
I sat in the back of the police car and I cried. And I just thank God that they didn't kill me that night.
A month after the stop, Antoine Glover spoke out, claiming he was asked to step out of his car because he had marijuana on him.
I'm telling you, I have my medical marijuana license, sir.
At the time, we also learned that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the Lakeland Police Department were investigating this arrest. But in the months since, we haven't heard much about the status of this case.
My name is Sarah Jones. I'm a criminal defense attorney.
So we went to speak to Glover's attorney.
And I just kept thinking somebody has to help him.
Glover is facing charges of resisting arrest, possession of marijuana, and battery on an officer. Jones wants those charges to be dropped, but she says she's also preparing for a possible trial where she hopes to point out discrepancies between the police report and what she says actually happened that night.
There was just a lot of what I call not passing the smell test.
According to the 5-page report, Detective Dylan Korn and officers Anton Jefferson and Jason McCain were out patrolling in Lakeland just after midnight. The report goes on to say they spotted Glover driving without a seatbelt on, and they signaled for him to pull over. But according to Jones, Glover's car had already been parked in the driveway of a family member's home.
He sees the vehicle pull up beside him, and it's an unmarked vehicle. So he's sort of wondering, who is this stopping beside my vehicle? As they approach the vehicle, they say, turn the vehicle off. And so he's asking them why, but also turning off the vehicle at the same time. They don't really answer him as to why. And they ask him, do you have any drugs in the car? Do you have any marijuana in the car? And he says, well, yes, I have marijuana.
According to the police report, an officer then tried to remove a satchel from around Glover's neck that had the marijuana in it, but it claims Glover pushed him. However, Glover's attorney says her client actually raised his arm to remove that satchel and give it to the officer.
He says he grabbed my arm, and I'm telling him, you can have the bag, I'll give you the bag. But the officer is sort of pushing him along the car. They're like sliding down the side of the car until he gets him on the ground. That's roughly the time that this video starts.
Hey, stop punching my dad!
And for Jones, this moment in particular shows the officers are at fault in this case.
His hands are up, back, showing, hey, I'm surrendering, I'm not fighting you. And you see an officer just come punch him in the face.
We showed this video to an independent policing expert and forensics professor at Florida Gulf Coast University, and he says that moment also caught his attention.
What struck me is watching one officer take his fist and pound this gentleman in the head. And usually when that happens like that, boom, 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 it's that type of reaction is due to anger.
Dr. David Thomas tells us the police report left him with questions such as why the punches weren't included in the write-up.
Well, if you hit somebody and you use force, and that level of force, and even on the force, it's on the force continuum. So that means that you should detail why you did it.
It's also a detail that the Lakeland Police Department's protective action policy asks officers to document in their reports. Without body camera footage and with 2 conflicting sides of the story, Dr. Thomas says investigators will have to rely heavily on internal interviews and the cell phone video to determine if this stop should have happened in the first place and if this use of force was appropriate.
It takes another supervisor, it takes internal affairs to be able to look at an incident and say, yep, this was reasonable and fair for the confrontation, considering what the encounter was.
But for Jones, the only reasonable thing in this case would be for the officers involved to be facing charges instead.
I think there has to be something that says, in order to really, really, really have great policing, everybody has to be held accountable.